This is lesson 2 of Defying Gravity from Wicked by Stephen Schwartz from the set works for music from stage and screen for edXL. In this lesson, we're going to be looking at the makeup of the orchestra for Defying Gravity, understand the structure of the piece, understand the use of leitmotifs and motifs, and understand the use of perfect intervals in the shape of the melody. Just a quick look that's your bell work activity for when you come in for lesson 2. Make sure you've revised for these questions. Okay, so we're going to start off by talking about the orchestration for Defying Gravity. And the first thing we notice is the two vocalists. We have Elphaba and we have Glinda, both having different vocal ranges and sounds. You've got Glinda sung by a soprano, which is obviously the highest of the voices, soprano, alto, tenor, bass. And then in between soprano and alto, we have what's called a mezzo-soprano, which is what Elphaba's vocal range is. Slightly lower, richer, but both of the voices require a large range, especially in this song, of just under 2 octaves. So that's the vocal range that's needed. Quite a large range. So the singers are actually accompanied by a band of around about 23 musicians. Although there's 23, there are more instruments being played because most of them have to play more than one. They double. That's what it's called. It's called doubling in the orchestra. And then there's also keyboards used to give the impression of a bigger sound, a bigger orchestra. They kind of back up the strings, woodwind and brass section with the sounds on the keyboard, which is actually called patching. So they use patches to create the sound. And note that Wicked was orchestrated by the arranger William Brown, who beautifully, he conjured up an amazing sound of witchcraft, magic. He also worked on things like Miss Saigon, Ragtime. He did one of the most recent stage shows of Mary Poppins. He arranged the music for that as well. So what about the instruments? Well, we have, first of all, 4 strings, 2 violins, a viola and a cello, which uses a tremolo, which means it's basically a tremolo effect. So if you get one note on the violin and you rapidly bow that note, you get kind of shaking, trembling effect, and that's tremolo. And then they use pizzicato as well, which is essentially they pluck the strings with their fingers, almost pinching at the strings, creating quite a dead sound, not the smooth sound that you get when you use a bow. We have a double bass, and this is where we see doubling for the first time because you have a double bass and also bass guitar playing the same thing, giving it a larger sound on the bass notes. There are 4 woodwind players who double on flute, clarinet, bass clarinet, bassoon, piccolo, cort anglaise, which is like an oboe, so almost like a clarinet with a smaller reed, and then saxophones. Another family of instruments from the orchestra we see is the brass instruments. And we have 2 trumpets, 2 trombones, and 2 horns, which use a mixture of mutes, which dampens the sound, just goes in the bell at the end, and it dampens the sound. And then we have hand stops as well. Away from the traditional instruments of the orchestra, we see Defying Gravity make use of electric guitars. And they use an overdrive sound, which is the rocky guitar sound that you hear in rock metal music, kind of a crunchy, distorted effect. We have our percussion instruments as well, which include a harp, there's a drum kit, there's the timpani, and then there's kind of magical sounding synth sounds and glockenspiels, a suspended bell, shakers, a gong, which comes in at bar 169. And then also, like I mentioned earlier, we have our 3 keyboards, 2 of which are synthesizers, which play patches, so strings, woodwind, brass, etc., and one of which is acoustic piano. So let's have a look at the structure of the song. So Defying Gravity is basically, it's a solo and verse. It's a verse-chorus form for Elphaba. So very much like any other pop song, you have a verse, you have a chorus section. And then a bridge section as well. which is expanded with duet sections. There's passages of underscoring, so you have music playing underneath the dialogue. And then you have recitative, which is basically music that follows the rhythm and intonation of the speech. At the very end, the ensemble enters just before the curtain falls. So let's take a moment, click on the link, and have a listen to the song Defying Gravity, if you haven't already listened to it, and see if you can follow the structure below, while I take a slight tea break. Enjoy. Oh, yeah. So leitmotifs and motifs. So when we look at Star Wars, we can see how John Williams makes use of recurring ideas. If you've already looked at Star Wars, Year 10s, we've not done this yet. And it becomes a theme or a piece of music that's linked to a certain character. For example, Luke Skywalker, or another example being in the film Jaws. Every time we see the shark or the shark is coming, we hear James Bond. We know James Bond is coming because we hear, or and then obviously in Harry Potter, we have Hedwig's theme for the owl. And composers have always made use of these short bits of melody, maybe only a few notes, to represent the characters and give you a sense of familiarity with what's going on in the story. Another famous example of a motif, so it's a few notes that repeat over and over again, is Beethoven's Fifth Symphony. Obviously, click the link, have a listen, and those are called motifs. In Wicked, Schwartz uses a large number of leitmotifs and motifs throughout, and it helps kind of unify and act as a reminder of the events that have happened. So you've got to think that that musical is 2 hours long. There needs to be some continuity in the music throughout to give you a sense of remembering things that have happened at the beginning. The most prominent leitmotif actually links back previous to Wicked, and we're looking at Wizard of Oz, and is based on the famous song Somewhere Over the Rainbow. And Schwartz calls this the unlimited theme, after the lyrics that are sung with that in Defying Gravity. So we have Somewhere Over the Rainbow. So here's our motif 1, as you can see. See if I can highlight this. So Somewhere Over the Rainbow here, which is our motif 1, which is taken from The Wizard of Oz. We have our number 2 here, which is taken from an earlier song in Wicked called The Wizard and I. And then we have number 3 here, which is taken from bars 93 to 94 of Defying Gravity. So let's have a listen to them. So Somewhere Over the Rainbow. Play that again for you. And then we have our number 2 here, which is taken from an earlier song in Wicked. And let's see, you've still got the same notes. Play that once more. And then you've got number 3, which is from bar 93 to 94 of Defying Gravity. Again, we're having a look at the notes. You got your G there, G there, F sharp, D, E, F sharp, G, E, F sharp, G. So let's have a listen to that. Play it for you once more. Now, if you take away any of the rhythms and just play the notes in the order they're written, that's to say we just put them all on a crotchet rhythm, you actually get the same notes in each of them. Exactly the same notes. Very clever technique used in this piece. Oh no, I've messed up. Right, let's go back to the mouse. How do I do this? There we go. Awkward pause. Tea break. Okay, so these 7 notes, those 7 pitches are used in accompaniment throughout the musical, and we first hear them in Defying Gravity at bar 21 when they become Elphaba's leitmotif. Let's just play it for you here. So this is the leitmotif here. I'm just going to play it for you. Hopefully play right. It's close. Let's try once more. Play it for you once more. Okay. So just as a comparison, all the extracts I'm playing at the moment are in the key of G major and treble clef. However, they don't always appear in the piece. So here's it in G major. So that's Elphaba's leitmotif. However, Defying Gravity is in D major for your GCSE. Though it is actually in D flat major for the show, this is what it sounds like in D major. I'll play it for you once more. Elphaba's leitmotif. Okay. Another motif, so motif C, is also adapted from the 7 pitches. However, we add a D in the middle, and they form little synthesizer flourishes in bar 21, 23, and 33. And we get this. I'll play it again. Play it for you once more. The thing all these motifs and leitmotifs share is a large leap of an octave. So we go from, let's see if we can do this without breaking it. We go from a G and we end up leaping up to the octave up here. So from that up there we go. So and back down to the octave down there. I didn't break it. That is good. Take it off. Oh, maybe I have broken it. There we go. So listen to one of the last and most beautiful songs from Wicked, which is For Good, and see if you can hear these 7 notes. Listen out for the octave leap, and it's not only at the beginning. That's kind of what you're listening out for. Okay. As for the key, so Defying Gravity is originally in the key of D flat major. But the purpose of GCSE, to make it easier for you, they've put it into D major, which is a key signature of 2 sharps, F sharp and C sharp. Here are the notes on your screen now of the D flat, the D major scale. So we've got D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp, and we finish back on a D. So play those for you once more. So there's your D major scale. And though the very first chord is tonic D major, it doesn't remain there for very long, and instead, throughout the 31 bar introduction, we visit unrelated keys. So we have D major, B major, F major, and at the end, it finally reaches back to D major, following a perfect cadence. So do that again, perfect cadence. Back to D. Throughout the piece, there are many key changes. Though, unlike Music for a While, which is another set work that we're going to look at, the key changes are abrupt and aren't really modulated, so they don't move through different keys. We change all of a sudden between keys. And this is the case with the sudden change back to D major for the beginning of the first verse. To think, we go from D to to B, to F, and then back to D. Very unrelated and very abrupt. And finally, we're going to look at some perfect intervals. So, as we discovered in Star Wars, composers often focus on certain intervals in their pieces. Star Wars ascending fifths and perfect fours. So perfect fifths, perfect fours are present throughout, and much of the melodic material is based on those intervals, or however you play it. These leaping intervals from the tonic, so from D to the dominant A, remember tonic, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is the dominant, create a sense of strength and power. And as with Luke Skywalker's theme, it's appropriate for Elphaba, who is asserting her own strong identity. So this is the opening of the first verse. I'll play it for you once more. If we break that down, you'll see that you go, so you have your tonic, which is here, and then we end up jumping up to the dominant, back to the tonic, back down, and then up again to the tonic, and back down a fourth to A. So just a heads up, we go up a fifth, which is your dominant, but down a fourth if you're going down to A. Oh, I've pressed the wrong button again. Let's try that again. Okay, so the rest of the first verse continues in very much the same way, with variations of the first phrase. Schwartz also makes uses of perfect fifths at the beginning of the chorus. As Elphaba leaps, so does the music. So we leap from the tonic to the dominant. So we go from D, A. So we've got two big leaps there of a fifth. D to A to E. An octave, just as a side note, is also a perfect interval, and we've seen already how these are featured in this music. Octave leap. Okay, so that is the end of lesson 2 of Defying Gravity. Below you'll see the review questions. If you want to have a go at answering those, you can do. Make sure that you've made some notes on what you've heard, have a read through the information, and make sure you keep listening and keep revising